karma, reincarnation, and the chakras. None of them will make sense without all three of them working together. The chakras, as I was explaining to some of you perhaps yesterday, it's an energy system within us that is the continuing reality through all our incarnations. Incarnations are physical, and we put on a physical body. But what creates that physical body is the pattern of energy that is stored in the chakras. And when our physical body dies, we continue to exist identifiably to ourselves as the same individual, and we move into the astral world where the energy of who we are is not inhibited by a physical body. But even now, much more than we realize, we think we're moving in a physical way, but it's the energy within us that decides what happens. Okay? And there are 7 chakras from the crown to the spiritual eye, the throat, the heart, the navel, where the genitals are, and then at the base of the spine. And each of those has unique characteristics, and all of them working together are what allow us to function, either to function in a harmonious, balanced way, or to function with certain aberrations like this. Every chakra has a positive dimension, and what makes it a positive dimension is that it guides us to work in harmony with a higher truth. As an example, the first chakra, which is the earth chakra, represents the human need for security. And the need for security is a need. Everyone needs to feel secure. So the question of whether it's working in an upward moving, in a way that's helping us on the deepest level, or distracting us, is where we seek our security. The spiritual eye is our individuality in tune with our higher consciousness, with the greater reality, with God. So we're still an individual, but we're working in harmony with our soul's destiny, you might say. So the people often talk about chakras being blocked. That's the conversation that people use, and it's true. I'm not going to give a whole class on the chakras because it's too much. I don't have time. But it's not merely that the energy is blocked, it's more like we seek security. Instead of seeking security by raising our energy and being in tune, putting ourselves in tune with our best divine interests, we seek security on the level of the chakra, trying to find it in the material world. So instead of that energy adding to our wisdom and freedom, it traps us. I have to have money. I have to have this relationship. I have to have this respect from the world, these people. Perfectly reasonable, except that it's impermanent. And it will work for a while, but sooner or later, we haven't anchored ourselves on the unchanging reality of our attunement with our higher self. And every time we think, we act, we feel, we are doing something that relates to our perception of, in this one, where our security comes from, or from the solar plexus, from the navel center, where our power comes from the heart, where love comes from. You can see all of these things. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't participate in this world. It's what we think we're doing while we participate in this world. And so all of those decisions, one after another, set certain causes in motion. You know, I want, I don't want, I have to have, I love, I hate. It's making decisions about where our happiness comes from. You heard me say this yesterday, and what causes suffering. And it affirms a certain level of reality. Who am I? And what is the nature of life? And every time we add energy, the chakras assume the form at the appropriate center, depending on what each center is specializing in, and at the vibration that reflects what I believe is true. If I believe, let's use a simple example, if I believe that as a woman, the most important thing for me is to look beautiful, okay? So I spend all my time, I spend a lot of money, I spend a tremendous amount of thought, I feel how people respond to me as beautiful or not beautiful. All of these things are deeply in my consciousness in terms of what's going to cause me happiness and what's going to cause me suffering. Now, what happens, of course, if I'm thinking about my human face, time passes. And, you know, when one used to be young, the one is not young anymore. Or perhaps one has some kind of an illness or an accident, all kinds of things. So my belief that I could have happiness by being a young, beautiful woman is misguided. It's self-evidently misguided, because you can't be young forever. Just start right there. But you've built up in your chakras by all those actions, you know, a certain force field of belief, and that belief is not in harmony with your own highest interest. Because your highest interest says you have had many bodies, you've had age and youth, you've been male and female, you've been disfigured and you've been beautiful. You know, the deeper reality is higher. So you set in motion an aberration, something that's not quite in harmony, that your soul wants you to fix, okay? Your ego self might want to just choose more beautiful parents next time, you know, and just get those blue eyes that are so popular right now, or whatever it might be that you're looking for. But your soul wants you to graduate from the complete misunderstanding and find happiness where it really comes from. So that's karma in the sense of an unlearned lesson. You see, the soul knows perfect freedom, perfect happiness comes from attunement with divine realities. The soul, however, gets confused and identifies with a limited reality, and then it keeps putting out energy, and it keeps trying to make of this world something that will never succeed. You know, I am always going to be young and beautiful. Therefore, I'm going to have plastic surgery, and I'm going to have hair implants, and I'm going to have my nose fixed, and I'm going to starve myself. But it's just not true. It's never going to work. Or if I just have enough money, then I'll be secure. If I just have the right family and those kids who will just turn out the way they're supposed to turn out, instead of that weird, rebellious child that I got the last time. You know, next time they're all going to be just like me. You can see, I'm exaggerating, but you all see what it is, isn't it? Now, at first, this feels like a punishment. Oh, but I want this. Why am I not getting it? And we don't understand. So we have these words that we say are really simple. If it goes the way I want it to go, that's good karma. And if it goes against what I want, well, obviously that's bad karma. But what makes it good? What makes it bad? Sometimes what people call good is not really good. I'm sure even in this country you know about Elvis Presley, very famous singer, known all over the world and so on. He had tremendous success as a singer and an actor, and his life just became awful toward the end. So was it good karma for him to be so successful? Well, here's another way to look at it. Everything that happens to you is neither good nor bad. It's merely an opportunity for us to learn something that we didn't know. Okay? So from one incarnation to another, when the whole process of learning is much too complex to accomplish in one lifetime. Even the resolution of just a few issues are often very difficult to accomplish in one lifetime. You know, some people are born with great talents. And they're obviously born with great talents because they've been working on them for lots of lifetimes. You know, Mozart did not become Mozart just like bingo in that birth, but he carried into it everything he remembered from before, you know? And so we have these momentums, and it can take many incarnations to perfect painting, singing, dancing, science. We can be medicine, all these different fields that we're working on. We're following them through to the depth to see what kind of happiness they can bring us. Now, at a certain point, we sort of begin to understand enough that even the talents and the longings that we have are not just, I want because it will make me happy. We begin to have enough experience that begins to say, well, let me put it like this. The whole journey is answering the question, who am I? What is lastingly real? And what brings me happiness and what brings me suffering? So merely being the drive to excel, you know, to master a craft, to be dynamic in what we do is not in itself a delusion. In fact, it's just the opposite. So oddly enough, many powerful people who are not using their power in a positive way are actually much more enlightened than someone who doesn't have enough courage or willpower to have even any kind of power at all. Because a person who already knows how to generate energy, how to concentrate, how to discipline themselves, how to find willpower for their goal, all they need to do is shift their focus. There was a great avatar in the late 1800s in India. His name was Ramakrishna. He was a very high caste Brahmin. And at that time, people in the theater were very low caste. And one of his dedicated disciples was Girish Ghosh, and Girish was a playwright, a Bengali playwright. And he pulled women out of brothels and put them on the stage because higher class women wouldn't do that, but it was a step up for those women. And so generally the singers and dancers and actresses were not respected in society. But Girish brought everyone he met to meet his guru, Ramakrishna. So he brought his whole theater troupe to the Kali temple where Ramakrishna was, and they all had satsang together. Many of the high caste Brahmins were entirely scandalized at having these so-called low caste people there. And afterwards, some were reprimanding him for letting them come. And he said, The God they worship now is art and music, he said, but they know how to worship. They knew how to dedicate themselves. After the theater troupe left the temple, some of those who felt they had to be the custodians of what they thought was righteousness came and scolded Ramakrishna for consorting with these people, because it was a breaking of the caste tradition. And he defended them. He said, because the God they worship is the art they're pursuing, but in their passion for that art, they are learning how to worship. So when their understanding elevates from what they are doing now, they will become great very quickly. You see? There was also Ramakrishna's disciple, Vivekananda, and the story is told that a very shy and weak person came to Ramakrishna and said, what should I do to find God? And Vivekananda said, can you steal effectively and get what you want without being caught? And he said, oh, no, sir, I would never think of doing that. He said, can you lie so brilliantly that no one will know you're lying? Oh, no, sir, I would never tell a lie. Then Vivekananda, who was very powerful, he said, learn to lie. Get good at stealing. Then come and ask me about God. So we have to see it with much more imagination, because one of the aspects of, no one makes spiritual progress without courage and energy and willpower and concentration. So the passions that we may have, whether it's raising children or building buildings or researching medicine or singing and dancing, if you think about it, what happens when you pursue that goal is you develop yourself. And then as your understanding begins to grow, then you can take those exact tools and apply them over here. Which is why often people who are good at one thing can be good at very many things, because they understand the principles of how to be good. So this is an unlearned lesson, which is how to set your goal and to dynamically go toward it. Which is why we have to understand that just being sort of nice and gentle and never making waves, and forgive me, I know I'm in a place where this is a very high value. It is not necessarily a divine value. A divine value is to be strong within yourself, and things will happen to you that will compel you to become stronger in yourself. Although sometimes you see, when those karmas first hit you, you don't have the strength to be strong in yourself. And so it feels like bad karma because you're crushed by it. But Yogananda put it just beautifully when he said, divine challenges in life do not come to crush us. They come to awaken us to the infinite power that is within us. And that's really why we're here. So it begins to take everything about what is good and what is bad and kind of turns it on its head. It depends on where you're going. The only karma that you can unequivocally say is good is what we call instant karma, because then cause and effect is really clear. Years ago, starting in the late 80s, I and a few friends of mine led pilgrimage tours from the United States to India. And we went to the places that were sacred to Yogananda's life. And we took 30 people, almost always Americans, almost always people who'd never been to India before, which included me. I led a pilgrimage on my first trip, but I knew a lot about Yogananda, so I earned my keep by doing that. And I especially had very exact ideas about what I wanted to see and where we should go. And sometimes our local guides had different ideas. And especially in the early years, they would, what we called, kidnap our bus and take us to the places they thought we should see. So we were in Varanasi, Benares, one of my favorite cities with the Ganges running through there. And our guide insisted on taking us to a place it's a temple to the goddess Durga. And Durga is a fierce goddess. She rides a tiger. She has a weapon in her hand. You don't mess around with Durga. Okay. But the place is more commonly called the Monkey Temple because Varanasi being a holy city, they won't kill the monkeys, and the monkeys make lots of little monkeys. So there's monkeys all over the place. This particular temple was particularly popular to the monkeys. So we arrived there. I am very displeased to be there at all. At that point, I was newer and I had less understanding, less understanding of the deities. Believe me, this helped me learn. So we're there. I am very crabby. I am not a happy person. And it's lots of monkeys, and monkeys do not have any bathrooms. So they just basically use wherever they are as the bathroom, to put it very mildly. Okay. And there was an old priest there. And because I was group leader, he kept wanting to put this garland around my neck, but the flowers were rotting. Marigolds, when they begin to rot, have this really strong smell. So he kept insisting on putting this rotten garland on me, and I kept taking it off and leaving it somewhere, and then he would find it and he would come and put it back on me. And you have to watch where you're stepping. And then there's monkeys all over the place. And I don't think much of Durga either. I'm thinking super negative thoughts about this old religion that needs to be cleared out, and what a mess this is, and can't they keep it? And then I'm taking off the darn garland for the third or fourth time like this. And because I'm just in this negative thing, not paying attention, I accidentally got in the middle of the monkey troop. So some monkeys are on this side of me and some are on the other. And so I'm suddenly a threat to the monkeys. So right in the middle of this, literally, a monkey jumps on my back. Yeah, just jumps on my back. Apparently, I was more courageous than I would have expected, perhaps because I was so annoyed. I pulled the monkey off my back. I threw it on the ground. I said, "Get off of me, you filthy thing." Then the monkey sank his teeth into my dress. Fortunately, I was wearing a skirt because, he thought it was me. He wasn't going to take this. So he sank his teeth into my dress like this, and I continued to yell at him, "Let go of me, let go of me," like this. By this time, the priest is not worried about the garland. He's just worried about group leader being destroyed by monkey, right? They come rushing over, they get them all away. Like after it was all done, I'm like this. But it was perfect. And this is the thought that comes. It came to me right from the goddess Durga. Honey, you don't mess with me. Don't mess with the goddess Durga, like this. And also, it's like, this has been a holy temple for centuries. Who am I to come in? Who am I to come in and just like that? Sassy American girl. Instant karma. Bad thought, whack. Just like that. That's very good karma, because there wasn't the slightest question in my mind. It was perfect. Cause and effect, just like that. Now the problem is, of course, if we're the strong bully on the bicycle and we have momentum, that's the word, If you're going 100 miles an hour, you may even want to make a turn, but you can't do it yet. You have to make a big arc like this. And these energy patterns in the chakras are all playing against each other, so that you'll have strong energy this way and then other energy in another direction, which is why sometimes you set out to do one thing and then suddenly you're doing another thing. And you might not have even decided, but the energy within you just begins to shift. Ideally, if we're being like in a creative process, you'll see that the energy will take you somewhere. But in life, it's like you resolve to say, tonight, I'm going to go home, I'm going to go into my room, I'm going to listen to some uplifting class, then I'm going to meditate, then I'm going to have a very light supper of just raw vegetables, go to bed early, all these things. And you're, in the first stages of that, and then all of a sudden you start thinking about the fact that there really isn't much food in the refrigerator, and if I just went down to the corner, I could pick up something good and then put it in the refrigerator, and then I could do the meditation, and then it would be in the refrigerator, and before you know it, you're on the street, and then you're at the shop, and then you meet a friend, and they're going to go out to a dance that night, and at 2 a.m, you come back, and you see your little meditation seat sitting there, and you never even knew. So that's also what's going on with us at all times. Think of it like this. Our goal and our divine responsibility is we are a river flowing to the sea. Yogananda poetically speaks, I am a bubble, make me the sea. We are a bubble of the ocean. We're trying to get back and merge with the infinite sea. We are not really separated, but we have drawn a little circle around ourselves. And we think of ourselves as the bubble, and we don't know that we're floating in the sea. Getting back to it is not physical. It's waking up to where do my ideas come from? Where does my life come from? Where does my joy come from? It's always happening. We just don't know it. But if we think of it like a river flowing to the sea, and all that river has to go through to get there. Sometimes it has to go up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it becomes very slow and narrow, sometimes it becomes mighty, and there's always these whirlpools. I lived for a number of years up in Ananda's first community. There's a beautiful California river right near where that community is. And so I spent time sitting on the rocks watching the water move through the river. And the river can be flowing just like this, but some obstacle will be on the side of the bank there. Maybe a tree has grown into the river. Maybe a tree has fallen into the river. Maybe an old truck has been thrown into the river. But what happens is this river that's trying to get to the sea is all of a sudden over here, and it can't go forward because it's being sucked away by this whirlpool. Within the chakras, chakra itself means wheel. Within the wheel are vrittis, and vrittis are whirlpools. Vritti is a Sanskrit word, so you won't find a Japanese word for it. Whirlpool is what it is. It's a whirlpool of energy. So we have a desire to go toward the light, but at the same time, there's a whirlpool over here that has been created by our committed energy. And there's a center point of that whirlpool that has magnetism. See, what makes this difficult is these are not fixed things. I can pick up this chair and I can go like that with the chair, and the chair is going to stay there. But if it was a whirling field of energy, I can't push it like that. I can only influence it by a stronger field of energy. You see what I mean? It's just energy to energy. If you're in your meditation room there and the thought of pizza comes, the pizza sucks, it becomes a little whirlpool. I never get enough of whatever it is that I want. And it crosses your mind and you say, no. And then all of a sudden, the resistance to that direction of energy is stronger than the whirlpool that's sucking your energy away. And if it's strong enough, the whole whirlpool will get thrown into the river. Or at least enough of the river will get past it that it won't become your center point. Does that make sense? And that's karma. Each of those whirlpools is karma. It's something that says, you have to pay attention to me, you have to relate to me. So we can overcome karma in lots of different ways. And the single most powerful way is if you're watching the river flow. When the river really gets into flood and has real power, all of the whirlpools just get sucked in. Which is why many meditating yogis say, don't worry about anything, just meditate. And this is also specifically one of the promises that Yogananda himself makes in Autobiography of a Yogi when he talks about the practice specifically of Kriya Yoga. Because Kriya Yoga powerfully increases the river of energy and it helps you gradually make the flow of the river of energy stronger than any whirlpool. Because this is where we have to realize, even if the karma, even if the triggering event of one of those whirlpools is, I had a beautiful home that was recently destroyed by an earthquake, which is something I was just told recently by someone in this room. Okay, there was a home, it was physical. And then one loses that home, and the center point of, I want my home back, becomes a reality here. But there's no furniture in there, there's no carpets, there's no window frames. There is just this committed energy of desire that says, my happiness requires that I get what I want. And because it's energy, it's not passive, it starts creating things around it. So when we have our next incarnation, maybe we're lucky and we choose a family. Maybe you could even choose a family that is back in your house. Let's say your house wasn't destroyed, but you spent your whole life building up that house and then you died. And the thing you want above all in the world is to be back in your house. And you may become a baby in that very house. And maybe it had nothing to do with the people in the house, but you wanted to get back to the house. Every vritti in your chakras has some center point of committed energy on your part towards something that you feel is required for your happiness and your well-being. So it's something you don't yet understand perfectly about where happiness comes from and what causes suffering. Now here is an extremely important point about karma. This is the way Swami Kriyananda put it to me. We learn a certain amount by having our desires denied, by not getting what we want. But we actually learn more from having our desires fulfilled. Now, let me explain that. Think about it. These are very practical ideas that you can understand. If you believe that if I could only have, if I could only have children, if I could only have success in this career, if I only didn't have to worry about money, then I would be happy. A piece of you always will hold that vritti that said, if I have this, I would be happy. So when other options come to you, you'll still think, no, I have to have this to be happy. If, however, you learn how to put out the energy how to concentrate, how to use your willpower, how to be disciplined enough to see your object of worship, to refer to Ramakrishna, and fulfill it as well as you're able to fulfill it. Then you have the experience, you have the opportunity from your experience to say, well, how happy did that make me? And see, here's where the beauty of this world also gets to be acknowledged. To raise a beautiful family, to build a beautiful home, to be able to sing like an angel is deeply satisfying. And it's divine in its expression. These things, these desires are planted in our hearts by God, and they're not the enemy. Our desire will train us in the qualities that we can use forever. And then we can say, well, that was absolutely wonderful, but it wasn't enough. And this is why, oftentimes people who are very wealthy are less happy than people who aren't, because they've been so persuaded that all I would need was this money, because if at this point they have the karma to have it, they've wanted it for a long time, but then it doesn't make them happy. So you have two choices at that point. Either then you think, well, what would? And then you get more subtle. And often what you realize is what I really enjoyed was the self-mastery that I developed in order to be able to do this. The flow of energy coming through me, the inspiration I felt, the sense that I was being a channel for higher ways of understanding, the good that I can do to the world because of what I have now, the compassion I can express, the kindness, and we learn the lesson of the karma. And then, sometimes when we don't have it, we have had it enough times in the past that you can just, shrug your shoulders and let it go. But you see how subtle it becomes? And this is why, well, I was in this situation at one point where I lived very, very simply, and I had very little, and I was living as a renunciate, and I looked forward to having less. I was in my 20s. And then circumstances required Swami Kriyananda asked me to earn money and build a little house. And I mean, this is something that many people would want to do, would be to earn money and to have a little house. For me, I realized, well, as long as I'm poor, then I can be sure that I'm spiritual. But if I had money and had a little house, well, I might not be spiritual anymore, which is, of course, what he was trying to get me to learn. So my first response was, I'll build an ugly house. And that will show that I'm still a spiritual person, because look how ugly this house is. Swami said, you don't get out of karma by doing it badly. Because the reasons we do it badly are always because of limitations within us. And it's not that the excellence itself is so important, but the overcoming of our limitations, because it's always our limitations that prevent the excellence. But the effort to be excellent is really what it's about. The effort to rise above the tragedy, the effort to feel God's presence, even when what's been given to you is nothing that you want. That is the unlearned lesson. Do I have to have things in a certain way before I can be an instrument, before I can be happy? This is what karma is, and you see how complicated it becomes. And so the only real thing we can do is Well, let me say it like this. At the beginning, well, actually all the way through, we are very interested in the details of our own karma, very interested. I presume that your country is just like mine, and there's all these fortune tellers and psychics, and in India you can go and you can have these readings from ancient sages and astrology, all these things. As it happens, one of the singers today is a very, very accomplished astrologer and a friend of mine, so I can ask him all the time about my astrology. I'm fascinated by myself, my own, all the details of my karma. And sometimes it's very helpful to know these things. But on another level, all karma is just the same. It doesn't matter what form it takes. It manifests in every individual life to exactly match the energy pattern and put before you exactly the right challenge to your ability to put out energy, trust God, be disciplined, be honest about what you really feel, to have the courage to pursue what you feel inwardly guided to do. It's always the same. There's a child's game, it might be here, I don't know, children play it, it's called King of the Mountain. It's pretty obvious. The child is on the top of a big sand heap or wherever he is, and all the children try to pull that child off the mountain. It's not a subtle game. Pull the child off the top. The other children try to get on the top. It's the kind of thing that roly-poly kids like to do, right? All of karma is just a big game of king of the mountain, really. You're trying to stand at the top of the heap and stay steady and not lose your position, and then something grabs your ankle and tries to pull you off, or something knocks you over from behind, and then you have to just get up and get back again like this. And all the details of who did what to whom and why and what past incarnation it was and who you are to each other and what your planets are doing, which I myself enjoy immensely, knowing all these things, partly because it's entertaining and because also it helps me go on, helps me understand, oh, I see, this is what I'm working out. I often make up stories, and I don't know if it's intuition or pure imagination. When I have a difficulty, I'll make up a story that makes it make sense. And then it helps me because I can feel it. Oh, this is, instead of thinking that you're really doing something to me, I can think, oh, well, yes, back 100 years ago, I was your rebellious daughter. So naturally, you're trying to control me now. Like that. Or 100 years ago, I did something so irresponsible that the whole family was disgraced. And naturally, you're not happy to see me now, right? Or whatever, you see? And it doesn't, to my mind, matter if it's true so much as it explains how I feel. And it tells me, this is what I often say, having this karma once is once too many. And if I don't face into it and resolve it now, that means I'm going to have to do it again. And I'm really not enjoying it now. I'm not going to enjoy it then either, like that. So why resist? And you can't resolve everything, but you can push it forward. You can push everything forward with the right response. Okay? And also then life is not so much of a mystery. Now, the last thing I'll say before I stop, karma is a brutal teaching. It's really brutal because it makes everything absolutely fair. Because even if you can't remember, it's the response of the energy pattern that you or others have within themselves. Or it's a balance of something that was out of balance before. You know, you took advantage or someone took advantage of you. Everything is fair. When you look around this planet, you do not think things are fair. You know, it just, innocent children are, even as we speak, are suffering. Innocent people. It's a nightmare in many ways. So the key issue, and forgive me if I've already said this to some of you here, once we begin to understand by honest introspection that challenging, even terrible times are the divine's way of taking me to somewhere that I need to go. In other words, that suffering has a purpose, and that purpose is always loving, and it will fulfill itself. Now, I was actually in the car coming over here in the taxi, thinking about this. I thought, how did I come to peace with this? You know, so that I'm by no means indifferent to much of what's going on the planet, but I don't rebel against it. It's karma that has to be worked out by everyone who has to work it out. And I honestly, I'm not sure. When I was first introduced to the idea of karma, I was 18 years old, never ever thought about it, you know, came to me through books. And it wasn't like I immediately, oh yeah, I get that. It was, wow, that's a lot more interesting than anything else I've ever heard before. And there were a number of years where I just, whenever in my own life or in the lives of others, I saw circumstances that I couldn't understand, I pretended that I understood and accepted the law of karma and reincarnation and the chakras, and I tried to look at it from that perspective. And I think I just persuaded myself that it all did make sense. And the last part of it is, I have to admit that my worst experiences have been my best experiences. That I have been changed in ways that I deeply and desperately wanted to be changed. And the only way it was accomplished was by things that were very, very difficult. And I've seen it in my friends as well. So if I can understand it and accept it, then at what point is it a different system? You know, at what point can you take this incredible interrelated tapestry, which is the world we live in, and say, well, all of these threads weave together to make this perfect picture, except right here, I'm going to cut out this piece, and I'm going to cut out this piece, I'm going to cut out this piece. So make it a challenge. If karma is true anywhere, karma has to be true everywhere. And what would that look like? And bear in mind, karma is a friend. Karma is a divinely guided opportunity for us to become perfectly happy and perfectly free. And even to climb a mountain, sometimes you go down. And so even if you're going down, you're still going up. What would the world look like to you if that was what you were seeing? So, my friends.
I've known them forever, they've haunted my slumber and called to me out of the deeps of space. The love that they promise has helped me remember another time a caring embrace. Dark eyes in the morning, dark eyes in the evening, dark eyes in the starlight at end of day. The Dark eyes that speak silence, they whisper, come find me. You'll never know true love if you stay. Now I seek them in the winter time, oh, I seek them in the spring. Those two dark eyes draw my heart away to where sun and moon sing. I laugh now in the summertime when ripples on the river play. I laugh soaring with the meadowlarks, love has made my heart gay. I laugh soaring with the meadowlarks, love has made my heart gay. I've known them forever, they've haunted my slumber and called to me out of the deeps of space. The love that they promise has helped me remember another time, a caring embrace. Another time.